The peaceful Sunday afternoon in San Miguel's Central Square was abruptly shattered by the piercing scream of Isabel Valdez. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. With teary eyes and a trembling voice, she pointed at Tomas, the town's young prodigy, accusing him of stealing her valuable family necklace. The crowd, which moments earlier had been enjoying a pleasant community picnic, was left in shock. Tomas, known for his intelligence and integrity, paled at the accusation. Whispers of disbelief and wild speculation quickly spread. Some defended Tomas vehemently, citing his impeccable track record, while others recalled small, suspicious incidents from the past. The news spread like wildfire, dividing opinions and shaking the foundations of the community's trust. No one could foresee how this accusation would transform the lives of everyone involved and reveal long-buried secrets. Hours after the public accusation, an anonymous video was sent to the community's WhatsApp group. The grainy footage, captured by a security camera, showed a figure resembling Tomas sneaking into the Valdez residence. The person moved with familiarity around the house, heading straight to the master bedroom. Moments later, the same figure hurried out, something shiny glinting in their hand. The video's quality was questionable, but the resemblance to Tomas was undeniable. Local tech experts debated the video's authenticity, while conspiracy theories blossomed on social media. Some argued it was a sophisticated forgery. Others insisted it was definitive proof of Tomas's guilt. Tensions in the town rose, with friends and family taking sides and trust rapidly deteriorating. Rosa, Tomas's best friend since childhood, couldn't believe the accusation. Determined to prove his innocence, she started her own investigation. After days of relentless searching, Rosa made a surprising discovery. Tomas had an alibi for the night of the theft. Excited, she rushed to tell Tomas, hoping this would clear his name. However, to her astonishment, Tomas adamantly refused to reveal the alibi. His eyes, usually warm, became distant and cold. "Some things are more important than my freedom, Rosa," he murmured, leaving her perplexed. Tomas's refusal to defend himself raised further suspicions, and Rosa found herself torn between loyalty to her friend and the pursuit of truth. What could be so important that Tomas would rather be seen as guilty than reveal it? Detective Martinez led the search team at the Gomez residence, Tomas's family home. The atmosphere was tense, with Tomas's parents vehemently protesting the invasion. After hours of meticulous searching, just as hope of finding evidence was fading, a young officer noticed something odd: a loose floorboard in Tomas's room. Carefully, he removed it, revealing a small compartment. Silence fell over the room as, wrapped in a piece of black velvet, the missing Valdez necklace was discovered. Tomas's mother let out a muffled scream, while his father paled. Detective Martinez, with a heavy sigh, ordered the necklace to be photographed and collected as evidence. The discovery seemed to seal Tomas's fate, but to the more observant, something about this seemingly conclusive scene didn't feel right. The morning sun had barely touched the courtyard of San Miguel School when two police cars noisily parked at the entrance. Detective Martinez, accompanied by two officers, marched determinedly down the silent corridors. The tension was palpable as they burst into Tomas's classroom. "Tomas Gomez, you're under arrest for the theft of the Valdez family necklace," Martinez announced, his voice echoing through the stunned room. Tomas's classmates watched in shock as he was handcuffed. Some shouted in protest, others filmed the scene with their phones. Tomas, pale but determined, remained silent, his eyes briefly meeting his teacher's, as if trying to convey a silent message. As he was escorted out, the murmuring voices grew louder, marking the beginning of a divide that would affect the school and the community for a long time. On the night of the alleged theft, Maria, the timid maid of the Valdez family, was working overtime, cleaning the mansion's back windows. Through the reflection in the glass, she glimpsed a scene that left her frozen. A hooded figure sneaking out of the master bedroom, something shiny in their hands. What shocked her, however, wasn't the action itself, but a revealing detail when the hood slipped momentarily. Maria recognized the face, and it wasn't Tomas. Her heart raced, and she dropped the cleaning cloth, making a noise that alerted the intruder. Their eyes met for a terrifying second. Maria wanted to scream, to call out, but fear paralyzed her. The figure made a threatening gesture before disappearing into the night. Since then, the weight of the secret and the fear of retaliation had tormented Maria as she silently watched the unjust events unfold. As the town buzzed with theories and accusations, a mysterious figure arrived in San Miguel. Staying discreetly at a boarding house on the outskirts, the private detective, who introduced himself only as Jay, began weaving his own web of investigation. With unconventional methods and a sharp intuition, Jay dove into the hidden layers of the case. Disguised interviews with locals, meticulous analyses of old records, and nighttime observations of the Valdez mansion formed the puzzle Jay was trying to piece together. His presence didn't go unnoticed. Whispers about an outsider asking strange questions began to circulate. Some saw hope in this independent investigation, while others feared more secrets would come to light. Jay, however, remained unfazed, convinced that the truth behind the necklace theft was far more complex and darker than anyone could imagine. The trial of Tomas Gomez quickly became a national spectacle. Television channels broadcast updates 24/7, while newspapers ran sensational headlines. Legal experts heatedly debated on talk shows, each offering their own interpretation of the evidence. On social media, hashtags like "Yar Tomas Innocent" and "Justice for Valdez" waged a virtual war. Reporters camped outside the courthouse, chasing family members and lawyers for exclusive statements. The town of San Miguel, once quiet, now buzzed with film crews and curious tourists. Public opinion swung daily, influenced by every new rumor or exclusive revelation. Friendships were broken, and families divided as people took sides. The case was no longer about justice and truth, becoming a legal reality show that kept the country in suspense, overshadowing the pursuit of truth amid the media frenzy. On the third day of the trial, a scandal rocked the courtroom. Juanita Morales, an apparently ordinary juror, was exposed as a second cousin of Isabel Valdez. The revelation came through an anonymous investigation published on a local blog. Old family reunion photos and genealogical documents confirmed the connection. Tomas's defense lawyer immediately called for the jury to be annulled, alleging deliberate manipulation. The prosecution argued that Morales might not have been aware of the distant relation. The judge, pressured by the media and public opinion, ordered an immediate investigation. Morales, visibly shaken, swore she was unaware of the connection. The incident raised questions about the integrity of the jury selection process and fueled conspiracy theories. Trust in the judicial system was shaken, and the public began to question whether Tomas could truly have a fair trial under these circumstances. Carlos, the dedicated assistant to Tomas's defense attorney, spent sleepless nights meticulously re-examining every piece of evidence. One early morning, he made a shocking discovery: subtle inconsistencies in the dates of the Valdez mansion's security logs. Excited, Carlos compiled a detailed dossier, ready to present it to the court the next morning. However, when he arrived at the office, he found the door broken open and his computer had been wiped clean. The physical dossier was gone, along with his backup flash drive. Desperate, Carlos tried to reconstruct his findings from memory, but crucial details were lost. When he reported the incident, he was met with skepticism. Some suggested he had fabricated the story for notoriety, while others suspected an elaborate cover-up. Carlos's frustration grew, knowing he had touched on something dangerous but unable to prove it. The truth seemed to be slipping through his fingers, leaving only doubt and suspicion in the air. In the tensest moment of the trial, a hooded figure burst into the courtroom. Identifying herself as Elena Fuentes, she swore she had seen Tomas helping at an animal shelter on the night of the theft. Her detailed testimony seemed irrefutable, offering hope to the defense. The judge, after hesitation, allowed the testimony. Elena meticulously described Tomas's activities, corroborating his secret alibi. The prosecution, caught off guard, requested a recess to investigate the witness's credibility. When the session resumed, Elena had vanished without a trace. Searches at the animal shelter found no records of her or Tomas. The defense argued she had been silenced, while the prosecution accused her of being a hired imposter. The mystery surrounding Elena deepened the drama of the trial, leaving everyone to wonder, was she the key to the truth, or just another piece in a larger game of deception? Judge Hernandez, known for his impartiality, began exhibiting erratic behavior. Colleagues noticed his growing paranoia and inconsistent decisions. The truth came out when, pale and trembling, he revealed he had been receiving anonymous threats. Photos of his family in everyday situations, accompanied by sinister messages, arrived daily. The threats were meticulously calculated, playing on his deepest fears. Torn between his duty and the fear for his loved one's safety, Hernandez found himself making subtle concessions, at times favoring the defense, at others the prosecution, in hopes of appeasing his invisible tormentors. The revelation of the threats cast a shadow of doubt over the entire process. As authorities rushed to protect the judge and his family, the public began to wonder how much the trial had been compromised and who had the power and motive to manipulate justice so audaciously. On the penultimate day of the trial, when everyone expected closing arguments, Tomas abruptly stood up. "I confess," he declared, his voice echoing through the silent courtroom. But what followed left everyone stunned. Tomas didn't confess to the theft, but to uncovering a corruption scheme involving prominent figures in the town, including members of the Valdez family. He claimed the necklace theft was a smokescreen for a much larger crime. His voice trembled as he detailed an intricate web of money laundering and extortion. He explained that his initial silence was to protect informants and gather more evidence. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Lawyers shouted objections, spectators gasped in shock, and the judge struggled to maintain order. Tomas's confession not only turned the case upside down, but threatened to expose dark secrets that many preferred to keep buried. The day of the verdict dawned with San Miguel under siege. Crowds gathered outside the courthouse, divided between Tomas's supporters and those calling for his conviction. The tension was palpable, with police forming barriers between the rival groups. Inside the courtroom, the air was thick with anticipation. When the jury returned after a tumultuous deliberation, the silence was deafening. "In the case of the state versus Tomas Gomez, we, the jury, find the defendant." At that moment, a deafening explosion rocked the building. Screams and panic spread as smoke filled the room. In the ensuing chaos, protesters stormed the courthouse. Journalists broadcast live scenes of clashes in the streets. Amid the confusion, the verdict was lost, leaving the town and the country in a limbo of uncertainty and speculation, with the truth more distant than ever. Tomas's first night in San Miguel Detention Center was a vivid nightmare. Pulled from his cell by indifferent guards, he was taken to a dark courtyard where dozens of inmates formed a sinister circle. The leader, a scarred man known as El Lobo, announced with a cruel smile, "Welcome to your baptism, rich boy." What followed was a brutal ordeal. Tomas was forced to fight 3 inmates simultaneously, each bigger and more experienced than him. Punches and kicks rained down from all directions. Despite the searing pain and the metallic taste of blood in his mouth, Tomas refused to fall. His unexpected resilience impressed even the toughest of the inmates. After what felt like an eternity, El Lobo raised his hand, ending the ritual. Exhausted and battered, Tomas earned not only the reluctant respect of his fellow prisoners, but also a grim understanding that his fight for survival was just beginning. In the quiet of the night, when the detention center's halls echoed only with distant snores, Alex, Tomas's cellmate, finally broke his usual silence. With eyes reflecting years of secrets, he confessed, "My real name is Alejandro Morales. I'm the son of Diego Morales, the Shadow King." The name made Tomas shiver. Diego Morales was infamous, controlling a criminal empire spanning 3 countries. Alex revealed how he grew up in a life of luxury and danger, witnessing shady deals and violence from a young age. His imprisonment, he explained, was a desperate attempt to escape that world. "But there's no way out," Alex murmured, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and resignation. "My father has eyes and ears everywhere, even in here." This revelation not only changed the dynamic between the two, but also opened Tomas's eyes to a dangerous underworld he could barely imagine. One rainy night, Guard Ramirez approached Tomas's cell, his furtive eyes checking the empty corridors. In a low, urgent voice, he proposed an audacious plan. "I can get you out tonight. I have a car waiting, and contacts who will take you out of the country. Tomas's heart raced. Freedom, so close and tempting. Ramirez continued, revealing that he knew Tomas was innocent and sympathized with his situation. However, there was a price. Tomas would need to hand over information about the illegal activities he had uncovered before his arrest. Tomas's mind spun. Accepting would mean freedom, but also betraying his principles and possibly endangering others. Refusing would keep his integrity intact, but leave him trapped in a system seemingly determined to condemn him. With time running out and Ramirez waiting for an answer, Tomas faced one of the most difficult decisions of his life, testing not only his integrity, but also his faith in justice. While working in the detention center's laundry, Tomas noticed a strange pattern. Certain uniforms were marked with barely noticeable symbols. Intrigued, he began discreetly observing. Gradually, an alarming picture emerged. The marked uniforms were used to smuggle drugs, weapons, and information in and out of the prison. The system was ingenious. The marks indicated specific destinations, and the items were sewn into seams or hidden in false folds. Tomas realized this involved not just inmates but also guards and even unsuspecting visitors. The scale of the operation was frightening, implicating corruption at all levels. As he processed this discovery, Tomas faced an agonizing dilemma. Reporting it would risk his life, but staying silent would make him complicit. With every uniform that passed through his hands, the weight of the knowledge and the choice he would have to make grew more oppressive. Rosa woke to the sound of breaking glass. In the living room of her small apartment, she found a rock wrapped in a blood-stained piece of paper. The message was clear. Stop digging, or you'll be buried. Trembling, she realized her search for the truth had struck dangerous nerves. In the days that followed, the threats escalated. Silent phone calls in the middle of the night, a dead cat on her doorstep, photos of her in places she had recently visited. Each incident was a sinister reminder that she was being watched. Rosa struggled between fear for her safety and determination to clear Tomas's name. She began seeing shadows at every corner, distrusting even old friends. Sleepless nights were filled with internal debates about whether to continue or give up. The investigation that had begun out of loyalty had now become a battle for survival, testing the limits of her courage and conviction. One rainy night, Carlos was leaving the office late, his mind still buzzing with theories about Tomas's case. Distracted, he barely noticed the shadows moving in the dark alley. Suddenly, he was surrounded by 3 hooded men. "This is a warning," one growled before the first punch landed in his stomach. The brutality of the attack was calculated. Each punch and kick precisely aimed to cause maximum pain without leaving permanent marks. As he collapsed onto the muddy ground, Carlos caught a glimpse of a revealing detail. One of the attackers had a familiar tattoo on his wrist. It was a symbol Carlos had seen in documents related to the case. Through the pain, Carlos realized this wasn't a random mugging, but a clear message to stop his investigation. Left alone in the rain, ribs aching and eyes swollen, he faced a crucial choice: retreat to ensure his safety or persist in the pursuit of truth, knowing the next warning might be fatal. During her cleaning routine at the Valdez mansion, Maria accidentally knocked over an old vase. While picking up the shards, she noticed a secret compartment in the base. Inside, she found a leather-bound diary belonging to Isabel Valdez. With trembling hands, Maria began reading. The pages revealed a web of lies and manipulations that shook her understanding of recent events. Isabel confessed to orchestrating the necklace theft to cover up massive gambling debts. Even more shocking, the diary implicated powerful figures in the town in corruption schemes, including the judge in Tomas's case. Maria found herself facing an agonizing dilemma. Revealing the truth could save Tomas, but it would also put her own life at risk. The weight of the secret suffocated her as she debated internally between loyalty to her employers, fear of the consequences, and the desire for justice. Each page turned in the diary deepened her moral dilemma, transforming the simple maid into a reluctant guardian of secrets that could shake San Miguel to its core. After weeks of clandestine investigation, Carlos and Rosa finally connected the dots. In an apartment filled with documents and photos, they pieced together an intricate map of connections. At the center was the Valdez family, not just victims, but pivotal players in a vast corruption network. Overpriced contracts, money laundering, and extortion linked the Valdez to influential politicians, judges, and even crime lords. The necklace theft, they realized, was just the tip of the iceberg. Every new discovery left them more astonished and apprehensive. They had unearthed something far bigger and more dangerous than they had imagined. With trembling hands, Rosa held up a compromising photo of the mayor with Isabel Valdez. "Carlos," she whispered, "this goes beyond Tomas. We're dealing with the future of the entire town." The weight of the truth and the danger it represented hung heavily over them as they contemplated their next move in this deadly game. On a stormy night, Carlos received an enigmatic message. "Underground parking. Midnight. Come alone." Despite the risks, his pursuit of the truth drove him. At the location, he met a hooded figure. "I have what you need," the distorted voice said, handing over a flash drive. "But there's a price." The informant demanded protection and a new identity in exchange for the information. The flash drive contained encrypted bank records, incriminating emails, and audio recordings implicating key figures in the conspiracy. It was the missing piece of the puzzle. However, before Carlos could thank him, gunshots rang out. The informant fell, hit by an unseen sniper. Panicking, Carlos fled with the flash drive, the sound of footsteps closing in. Now, not only did he possess vital information, but he also carried the weight of a lost life and the knowledge that powerful forces would stop at nothing to silence the truth. Following an anonymous tip, Rosa found herself hiding behind crates in an abandoned warehouse at the port. Her heart nearly stopped when she saw Isabel Valdez enter, accompanied by menacing-looking men. Among them, she recognized a notorious drug dealer and a corrupt politician. The meeting that followed revealed a sinister plan. Isabel, far from being an innocent victim, was a central figure in an international trafficking operation. The necklace theft was an elaborate ruse to divert the authorities' attention. With horror, Rosa listened to details of bribes, threats, and plans to eliminate inconvenient witnesses, including Tomas. When Isabel casually mentioned taking care of anyone threatening her plans, Rosa felt a chill. She knew she had just witnessed something that could cost her life. With trembling hands, she activated the recording on her phone, knowing that every word captured put her in mortal danger. In a damp basement on the outskirts of town, Alejandro Valdez, long thought dead, lived a never-ending nightmare. Chained and guarded, he was the central piece in a macabre plot. His death had been staged to facilitate the Valdez family's shady dealings. Kept alive for his knowledge of secret accounts and underworld contacts, Alejandro was forced to cooperate under constant threat. Through a small window, he glimpsed the outside world, dreaming of freedom. One day, he overheard the guards discussing Tomas's case, realizing the young innocent was about to pay for his family's crimes. Consumed by guilt and determination, Alejandro began plotting his escape. He knew his freedom would not only mean his salvation, but also the chance to expose the truth and save Tomas. Each day was a battle between hope and despair as he waited for the perfect moment to act. The town of San Miguel was rocked by a wave of unexplained deaths. First, a prison guard was found dead in his car, apparently of a heart attack. Days later, an accountant linked to the Valdez family fell from his apartment. Then, a journalist investigating the case vanished, only to be found on the riverbank. Each incident seemed isolated, but Carlos and Rosa noticed a sinister pattern. All the victims had connections to Tomas's case or the ongoing investigation. The police, strangely, treated each death as accidental or unrelated. Fear spread among those who knew the truth. Potential witnesses went silent, sources disappeared. The message was clear: someone was cleaning up loose ends. Carlos and Rosa knew they were in a race against time, not only to prove Tomas's innocence, but to stay alive as they uncovered a conspiracy growing more deadly by the day. After sleepless nights of anguish, Maria finally gathered the courage to reveal the contents of Isabel's diary. She arranged a meeting with Carlos, determined to expose the truth. However, as she left her house, she was accosted by masked men. Before she could scream, she was dragged into a dark van. Maria's abduction didn't go unnoticed. Her absence at work raised suspicions, and soon Carlos and Rosa realized the gravity of the situation. A frantic race to find her began, knowing that every minute lessened Maria's chances of survival. Meanwhile, in an unknown location, Maria faced her captors with a mix of terror and determination. She knew her knowledge was her only bargaining chip, but also the reason for her danger. With time running out, Maria had to decide: reveal what she knew and possibly seal her fate, or remain silent and lose the chance for justice. Suddenly, social media exploded. A hacker using the pseudonym Hidden Justice flooded the internet with a torrent of compromising documents. Emails, bank records, and incriminating photos exposed the vast corruption network involving the Valdez family, politicians, and prominent businessmen. Tomas's case, once a local drama, had become a national scandal. Hashtags like Corruption San Miguel and Chapecher Free Tomas dominated the trends. Journalists scrambled to decipher the information, while shocked citizens demanded justice in the streets. Authorities, caught off guard, scrambled to contain the leak and control the narrative. The hacker, always a step ahead, continued releasing information strategically, keeping the public in suspense. Amid the digital chaos, Carlos and Rosa saw both an opportunity and a danger. The truth was coming to light, but with it, the risk to everyone involved increased exponentially. The race to solve the case was now not just against time, but against an entire world watching and demanding answers. The courtroom was in turmoil. In a shocking turn of events, the judge sped up the process, ignoring crucial evidence and key testimonies. The jury, visibly pressured, deliberated for only 2 hours. When the guilty verdict was announced, followed by a death sentence, a stunned silence fell over the room. Tomas, pale but resolute, stood firm. His eyes met Rosa's in the gallery, conveying a silent message of determination. Protests erupted inside and outside the courtroom. Lawyers shouted about procedural irregularities, while protesters clashed with police in the streets. The speed and severity of the sentence raised suspicions of manipulation at the highest levels. Journalists rushed to broadcast the news, while legal analysts expressed disbelief at the dangerous precedent being set. Amid the chaos, Tomas was escorted out, leaving behind a nation divided and a justice system in crisis. The announcement hit like a bombshell. Tomas Gomez's execution was scheduled for 72 hours from now. The news spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves across the country. Protests erupted in every major city, with thousands demanding clemency and a new trial. Religious leaders made emotional appeals for mercy, while celebrities used their platforms to denounce what they called judicial murder. On social media, the hashtag #JukeSaveTomas went viral, with millions sharing stories and theories about the case. International human rights organizations condemned the swift process, pressuring for diplomatic intervention. Inside the prison, Tomas faced his final days with surprising calm, spending his time writing letters and meditating. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, powerful forces worked tirelessly to ensure Tomas's silence would be permanent, fearing the truth might emerge at the last moment. With only 48 hours until the execution, Carlos and Rosa threw themselves into a frantic search for the evidence that could save Tomas. Sleepless nights blurred into foggy days as they sifted through documents, chased down flimsy leads, and pressured reluctant informants. Every minute was precious. A discovery led them to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Amid dusty boxes and forgotten files, they found encrypted financial records linking the Valdez family to a vast criminal network. But the final piece of the puzzle remained elusive. As time ticked mercilessly away, exhaustion and desperation threatened to overtake them. Rosa, on the verge of collapse, stumbled upon a hidden drawer, revealing a series of compromising photos. It was the proof they needed, but with time running out and powerful forces against them, delivering this evidence to the authorities seemed an almost impossible task. The race to save Tomas had turned into a battle for their own survival. On a stormy night, Alejandro finally saw his chance. Seizing on a moment of his captor's carelessness, he escaped his confinement, vanishing into the shadows of the town. Injured and disoriented, but fueled by adrenaline and determination, he made his way to the town center. In the middle of a press conference about Tomas's imminent execution, Alejandro burst onto the scene, his appearance causing shock and chaos. "I am Alejandro Valdez," he shouted, "and Tomas is innocent." Cameras turned, capturing the surreal moment. Before he could reveal more, gunshots rang out. Panic ensued as Alejandro fled, pursued by armed men. A frantic chase unfolded through the streets of the town, broadcast live to a nation in disbelief. Alejandro, knowing his life and the truth were at stake, ran desperately, seeking a safe place to finally tell his story and save Tomas. During a live television interview intended to reaffirm Tomas's guilt, Isabel Valdez began showing signs of distress. Her hands trembled and her voice faltered. Suddenly, to everyone's shock, she broke down in tears. "I can't do this anymore. The truth is," she began, but was cut off by her lawyer. The broadcast was abruptly cut, but not before millions had witnessed her collapse. Rumors spread rapidly. What was Isabel about to reveal? On social media, conspiracy theories flourished. Journalists besieged the Valdez mansion, while experts dissected every second of the video. Isabel was quickly hospitalized, allegedly for exhaustion, but many suspected a cover-up. Her public breakdown not only cast doubt on Tomas's guilt, but also exposed cracks in the carefully constructed facade of the Valdez family. With the execution looming, Isabel's near confession became a critical turning point, fueling urgent demands for a review of the case. Tensions in the detention center reached a boiling point. Rumors of Tomas' innocence, combined with the inmates' accumulated frustrations, ignited explosive chaos. It all began with a single shout of "Justice for Tomas," which quickly turned into a collective roar. Guards were overpowered, doors were broken down. In the midst of the turmoil, a group of inmates surrounded Tomas, determined to set him free. He, however, refused to flee, knowing it would only incriminate him further. The riot spread like wildfire, with entire wings falling under the prisoner's control. Outside the walls, riot police mobilized, while helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting shocking images to a horrified nation. Tomas, now in the eye of the storm, tried to calm both sides, aware that lives were at stake, and that the next moments could determine not just his fate, but the future of the entire prison system. Tomas's words, spoken on the brink of death, spread like wildfire. Within hours, the entire nation was in uproar. Journalists scrambled to verify every detail of his revelation, while social media exploded with heated theories and debates. In the government palace, lights stayed on late into the night as emergency meetings were convened. Politicians implicated in Tomas's accusations began resigning en masse, while others desperately distanced themselves from the scandal. In the streets, spontaneous protests erupted, with citizens demanding justice and reform. The stock market plummeted, reflecting the public's shaken confidence. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, a frantic hunt began, with authorities racing to locate the evidence Tomas had mentioned before it could be destroyed. The truth, long suppressed, now threatened to bring down an entire corrupt system, promising unprecedented transformation in the country's history. Tomas's words, spoken on the brink of death, spread like wildfire. Within hours, the entire nation was in uproar. Journalists scrambled to verify every detail of his revelation, while social media exploded with heated theories and debates. In the government palace, lights stayed on late into the night as emergency meetings were convened. Politicians implicated in Tomas's accusations began resigning en masse, while others desperately distanced themselves from the scandal. In the streets, spontaneous protests erupted, with citizens demanding justice and reform. The stock market plummeted, reflecting the public's shaken confidence. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, a frantic hunt began, with authorities racing to locate the evidence Tomas had mentioned before it could be destroyed. The truth, long suppressed, now threatened to bring down an entire corrupt system, promising unprecedented transformation in the country's history. In a packed courtroom, Alejandro Valdez took the witness stand, his presence causing a buzz of anticipation. With a steady voice, he began unraveling a conspiracy that left everyone stunned. He revealed how his own death had been faked to facilitate illegal operations on a global scale. Names of world leaders, magnates, and even religious figures were mentioned, implicated in a network of trafficking, money laundering, and political manipulation that spanned continents. Alejandro described secret meetings in underground bunkers, coded transactions, and assassinations disguised as accidents. With each revelation, the scope of the conspiracy grew, crossing borders and defying comprehension. Journalists typed furiously, while those in the courtroom alternated between shock and indignation. By the time Alejandro finished his testimony, hours later, the world as everyone knew it seemed to have irrevocably changed. The truth, in all its terrifying magnitude, was finally coming to light, promising to reshape the global balance of power. In a moment that will be etched in history, the true mastermind behind the entire conspiracy was finally unmasked. To everyone's shock, it wasn't a powerful politician or a crime lord, but Father Antonio, the beloved and respected spiritual leader of the community. For years, he had used his position of trust to orchestrate a vast criminal network, manipulating events and people like pieces on a chessboard. His confession, broadcast live from his church, left the nation in stunned silence. He revealed how he had used confessions and secrets shared with him to blackmail the powerful, how he had funneled church donations into funds for illicit activities, and how his reputation for holiness had been his most powerful weapon. The revelation shattered not only the faith of his followers, but also exposed the fragility of the institution society had blindly trusted. The case of Tomás, once thought to be at the center of it all, was merely a small part of a much larger and more sinister plan. The prison doors swung open, and Tomás emerged, blinking in the sunlight he hadn't seen for months. A deafening crowd awaited him, stretching as far as the eye could see. Signs reading, "Welcome Hero" and "Justice Prevails" waved in the breeze. Visibly emotional, Tomás took his first steps as a free man. Reporters swarmed, microphones thrust forward, eager for his first words. But it was the embrace of Rosa, who broke through the crowd to reach him, that captured the moment most powerfully. Tears of joy and relief mingled as they hugged, symbolizing the triumph of truth over injustice. Helicopters hovered overhead, broadcasting the scene to millions. In the streets of major cities, people celebrated as if it were New Year's Eve. Tomás's release was not just the correction of a judicial error, but a moment of national catharsis, a symbol of hope and renewal for a country longing for change. Codenamed Operation Clean Sweep, the largest police action in the country's history began at dawn. Elite teams, accompanied by live cameras, raided dozens of locations simultaneously. Luxurious mansions, corporate offices, and even government buildings were targeted. The nation watched, mesmerized, as once powerful figures were escorted out in handcuffs. The former mayor, caught trying to flee through a secret tunnel. The billionaire CEO, surprised while destroying documents. The corrupt police chief, surrendering after a brief standoff. Each arrest was a spectacle, with commentators narrating the events as if it were a sports event. Social media exploded with real-time reactions. As the day wore on, the scope of the operation became clear. No one was above the law. The image of Isabel Valdez being led away from her mansion became iconic, symbolizing the end of an era of impunity. As the sun set, a sense of catharsis and renewal hung over the nation. In the months following his release, Tomás emerged as a figure of national transformation. His experiences, chronicled in a gripping bestseller, catalyzed an unprecedented movement for judicial reform. Tomás's lectures filled auditoriums, his words inspiring a new generation of lawyers and activists. Legislative proposals, dubbed Tomás Laws, were introduced to prevent wrongful convictions and strengthen human rights protections. Universities invited him as a visiting professor, eager for his unique perspective on ethics and justice. Internationally, Tomás became a global ambassador for penal reform, consulted by governments around the world. His story was adapted into a critically acclaimed film, spreading the message of perseverance and integrity to a global audience. In his hometown, a statue was erected not to glorify him, but as a constant reminder of the fragility of justice and the importance of truth. Tomas, the man who had nearly been executed for a crime he didn't commit, now led a peaceful revolution, transforming a system that had once betrayed him. With his multi-million-dollar compensation and the support of donors inspired by his story, Tomas launched the Second Chance Foundation. The goal was clear: to provide legal, educational, and psychological support to young people wrongfully accused or convicted. The foundation quickly gained notoriety, with Tomas traveling across the country to open support centers in underserved communities. His charismatic presence and inspiring story drew huge crowds. TV shows competed for interviews, magazines featured him on their covers. Tomas used his fame strategically, turning every appearance into an opportunity to educate the public about flaws in the justice system. Celebrities and influencers aligned with the cause, amplifying its reach. In no time, the Second Chance Foundation became a national phenomenon, helping thousands of young people. Tomas, the ex-convict, was now hailed as a modern-day hero, a symbol of resilience and hope for an entire generation. Driven by the injustice Tomas faced and armed with deep knowledge of the system's flaws, Rosa threw herself into politics. Her campaign, focused on judicial reform and government transparency, resonated with an electorate hungry for change. Elected as the youngest state senator, Rosa quickly made her mark with her eloquence and unshakable determination. Her legislative package, dubbed Justice for All, aimed to modernize court processes and create independent oversight mechanisms for the judiciary. Facing resistance from conservative sectors, Rosa became a master at building unlikely alliances and mobilizing popular support through social media. Her live QA sessions attracted millions of viewers, turning legislative debates into national events. With each legislative victory, Rosa not only reformed the system, but also inspired a new generation of young people to get involved in politics, proving that real change comes from within the system. Carlos's appointment as Special Secretary for Judicial Reforms in the Ministry of Justice was met with applause by reformists and apprehension by traditionalists. His first-hand experience in Tomas' case made him uniquely qualified to lead systemic changes. Carlos implemented a series of innovative measures, from creating a task force to review potentially unjust cases to introducing cutting-edge technology to streamline court procedures. His pragmatic and diplomatic approach allowed him to skillfully navigate the turbulent waters of government bureaucracy. Carlos became known for his marathon meetings, often working late into the night to ensure that critical reforms passed. His dedication inspired a new culture within the ministry, where efficiency and justice became top priorities. Under his leadership, the Ministry of Justice transformed from a stagnant institution into a model of innovation and integrity, setting new standards for governance across the country. Shadows of the Truth. Behind the scenes of the Tomas case, Maria's memoir became an instant publishing sensation. With gripping narrative and explosive revelations, Maria took readers on a journey through the secret corridors of power. Her unique perspective as the Valdez family's maid provided never-before-seen insights into the machinations that nearly cost Tomas his life. The book not only exposed the sordid details of the conspiracy, but also painted a moving portrait of an ordinary woman facing an extraordinary moral dilemma. Critics praised her brutal honesty and captivating style. Shadows of the Truth was quickly translated into dozens of languages, becoming a global phenomenon. Maria, once a background figure, now found herself in the spotlight, appearing on talk shows and giving lectures at universities. Her book became required reading in journalism and law courses, inspiring a new wave of whistleblowers to expose injustices, no matter the personal cost. Alex's journey to redemption captivated the nation. After serving a reduced sentence and completing an intensive rehabilitation program, he emerged a changed man. His decision to join Tomas's Second Chance Foundation was initially met with skepticism, but Alex quickly proved his worth. His unique experience as a former member of a crime family made him invaluable in understanding and addressing the roots of juvenile crime. Alex developed innovative mentorship programs, using his own story as a powerful example of change. His talks in schools and juvenile detention centers had a profound impact, offering tangible hope to at-risk youth. The partnership between Alex and Tomas, once unlikely allies, became a symbol of reconciliation and second chances. Together, they expanded the foundation's reach, creating initiatives that not only prevented injustices, but also provided concrete paths for young offenders to reintegrate into society. Alex's story, from crime heir to change agent, inspired a national narrative of redemption and the importance of offering genuine opportunities for reform. After serving her sentence, Isabel Valdez emerged from prison a transformed woman. Rejecting lucrative offers for interviews and memoirs, she chose a path of quiet redemption. Under a false name, Isabel relocated to a remote community where she began working for a small NGO focused on educating underprivileged children. Her years of experience in management and networking, once used for selfish purposes, were now channeled into raising funds and resources for the organization. Slowly, projects initiated by Isabel began gaining national recognition for their innovative effectiveness. Schools were built, food programs expanded, and employment opportunities created. While the media speculated about her whereabouts, Isabel found peace in her anonymity and purpose in her work. Years passed before her true identity was discovered, but when it happened, the revelation brought not condemnation, but a cautious appreciation for her quiet, impactful path to redemption. The Tomas effect, as it came to be known, reverberated far beyond national borders. The case became required study in law schools and government institutes worldwide. International conferences were held annually to discuss the lessons learned and reforms implemented. Neighboring countries, inspired by the transformation, began adopting similar measures, creating a regional wave of judicial and anti-corruption reform. International organizations cited the case as a model for how civil society, the media, and the judicial system could work together to combat systemic corruption. Documentaries, films, and TV series based on the case kept the collective memory alive, educating new generations on the importance of civic vigilance. The name Tomas became synonymous with integrity and perseverance in the face of injustice. Decades after the case, its impact was still felt, with corruption indices steadily declining and renewed confidence in democratic institutions. The case that had nearly cost a young man his life had become the catalyst for an ethical revolution, reshaping the political and social landscape of an entire nation.